There have been a lot of people talking about tariffs. Tariffs are in the news. They're up, they're down, they're reciprocal, they're paused. They're 125% on China. And I want to just break down what this means if you're a small business owner like myself. If you work for a giant corporation, you can handle it. You'll be okay. But if you're a small business, things might get tricky. That'd be good for you, or they could be very bad. So I'll just go through some very basic stuff. So we all know what tariffs are. You buy stuff from China, it gets imported, you got to pay a tax bill to receive it from customs. Very simple. Economists are divided, is generous on if they're effective or not. Perhaps politicians are divided. Economists think they're generally bad. They'll retard your economy. But some politicians think they're good. So the first thing we're going to see is obviously a higher cost on imported goods. So what does that mean? Well, it means that things from China will cost more. But what does it also mean? It means that there might be more demand for domestic products. It means that other countries who create similar products that don't import to the United States because they can't compete on a price level with China might begin importing those things. So now, for example, in the news, you've seen Apple is moving some of their plants, their factories to India because India is not being slapped with a 125% tariff, at least not yet. We don't know the future. So it doesn't necessarily mean that things will be produced domestically. It does mean that things will not be purchased as much from the country who has the tariffs. Now, there are some products that don't really have alternatives. The very simple thing is like rare earth minerals, where so many come from China. But there are tons of other, for example, some country in Africa imports dried fish from Norway at a ridiculous amount. If that country were to put tariffs on Norwegian imports, there just wouldn't be an alternative for it. I forget the name of the fish and I forget the country, but you get the point. Where there are some things where the entire industry is centered in a country. And I can't give you a list of things that are only produced in China, but I'm pretty sure that the world's largest country probably has a stranglehold on some markets. And so some people, rightfully so, do view that as a security concern. For example, if we want to be totally energy dependent, if we want our energy grid to be dependent, still importing energy, but when the machinery breaks down, we can produce it domestically. That could be a good thing. And you remember during COVID, that was a big fear of like, if someone bombs our power grid, it's going to take 18 months to get the parts from China. I don't know the terminology for municipal infrastructure, but that was a thing. That was a thing that happened. So it isn't necessarily bad, and there are reasons for it, but for a small business owner, for a consumer who's not really concerned about national security and is not really willing to pay more for things to have more national security, I think that you're going to see, their quality of living will go down because they can purchase fewer things with the amount of money they have. And the counterpoint to that argument is that, then we'll begin producing those things domestically because the supply chain is completely disrupted. We'll produce those things domestically and they'll get paid more. And then they can afford the things we produce domestically. It's kind of an argument of like mercantilism, which was an economic philosophy that was, it's 500 years old, 400 years old. It's pretty old. Isolationism is what we call it now. Economic isolationism. Here's the thing though. So let's say best case scenario, these important industries Or let's just say industries that you like. Let's say you're really, really against, child slaves making shoes in China, which we all should be. Okay, that's a bad thing. Let's say they do move the shoe market to America. Not a matter of national security, but a good thing. This is what's going to happen. So there's going to be a disruption in the supply chain, which means there's going to be a vacuum of power, right? So think about if all of a sudden China is the king of imports and the king gets his head cut off. What's everyone else do? Well, they scramble for power, they scramble for market share. So in that void, in that supply chain disruption gap, you're going to have lots of entrepreneurs, lots of corporations scrambling to pick up the pieces, to fill in that demand, to meet that demand. Here's the bad side. We have no way of guaranteeing, one, that everyone's making a right decision. So it could end up being that a lot of small businesses get pushed out by domestic corporations, which is not an ideal outcome for people who are trying to raise wages by taxing imports, essentially. Or what could happen is Trump gets elected. Well, he's done. He can't do more than 2 terms. The next person comes into office, removes those tariffs, and then all of a sudden we have American industry and infrastructure that is now obsolete because they're not producing things cost effectively, and Americans can spend their money elsewhere. I mean, think about how many shoes are made domestically. I know New Balance for a while had some shoes produced domestically in, I think, Atlanta. There are lots of boots made domestically, things that are going to incur higher shipping charges due to weight or due to the materials used or due to their size or due to where the markets that buy them exist. That's definitely a domestic product. In Maine, there's a company that does boots and shoes. I forget. I think it's Jocko's company. But there are other examples of them. In Detroit, there are people who make boots domestically with leather and rubber and that stuff. But for shoes, what most of us wear at the gym or whatever, what you don't want to have happen is everyone floods to create American industry, corporations squeeze out small businesses, and millions of people or tens of thousands of people are out their life savings because they took risks, because that's kind of the deal with capitalism is people take risks and they're rewarded for allocating their capital in certain areas. And then Trump's out, who knows who's our next president. They take away tariffs and, that's that. Here's another thing too, though, that you don't really hear about is the paperwork. And here's an example. So there's a company that is a distributor and an installer of flooring. All of their flooring comes from manufacturers who have their supplies or the material even coming from China, which then they distribute to these wholesalers, and then wholesalers sell direct to customers that they install. The wholesalers, these small businesses that employ 10 to 50 people that do $1 to $10 million in revenue a year, they are getting notifications from their suppliers that prices are going up because things cost more, right? So for someone who only sells 5 things, simple, not a big deal at all. For someone who has a wide catalog of maybe 5,000 SKUs or 10,000 SKUs, it's someone's job to go through there and adjust all the pricing so the salespeople know what to quote customers on. It occurs every year, but when you have tariffs that are kind of hastily put into place and then paused and then reapplied and then removed and adjusted, there is a waste of time, in the sense that this person who is doing data entry work could be doing other more productive things. They're responding to the artificial market manipulations, and that takes time. That takes someone's time at you can even go further. It takes someone, the suppliers have to hire customs lawyers. They have to take their people who work in purchasing to adjust the prices, and then the same way costs are going to flow down to the customer. the additional labor needed to accommodate these artificial market changes are also passed on through the business. And, it results in higher costs for the customer as well. I hope that explained it from a small business perspective. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know it's a divisive topic, but I tried to be, relatively unbiased, although I think my true feelings may have come out. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe. See you later.